Hi, welcome to my video. So this video here is going to be about me talking about when I switched to Arch Linux. I don't know how long ago I switched to Arch Linux, but I would say it's been over a month now for sure. I never really stopped using Arch Linux as I always had it on different computers. But I do in the past would install other systems and test it out on actual hardware. And I would just try different systems. I would try okay, let's see what Ubuntu is up to, or let's see what Fedora is up to, or I would actually really try their systems out and basically give it a really good chance. As a lot of times I just basically use Arch Linux. Like throughout for a very long time, I've been a very heavy Arch Linux user, and I am. I like Arch Linux for a lot of reasons. I'm not saying it's the best for everybody, but for me personally, I really like Arch Linux. And for all the people that I see in comments from the past saying that Arch Linux is unstable and they try this other system out that's I think it's OpenSUSE Tumbleweed. They say it's a lot better. It's a more better roll and release system. Look, if that system works good for you, great. But don't say things like Arch Linux is unstable. Because I'm going to tell you one thing. I tested out stable systems and I had problems with them. They say Ubuntu is supposed to be a stable operating system, right? I had some problems with it, not major problems, but I did get occasional errors with Ubuntu. Fedora, I had a lot of problems with it, especially with NVIDIA drivers. Another thing with Fedora, I really don't like their package manager. That's a personal problem. People could like it, and it might be good for them because they're probably the programs that they use is okay with the system with Fedora. But for me, I have to add RPM Fusion and all those other layers of stuff extra to actually get programs I want. See, with Arch Linux, you get most of everything I need from just the Packman repository. But if you add the AUR, the Arch user repository, there's a lot of there's a lot of software on the AUR. I mean, I can't think of any software that I searched for that I did not found on AUR. I found every software that Packman does not have, and AUR has it. Everything I throw at it, it has it. So AUR is actually really good. A lot of people say you gotta be careful with AUR. There's malware can be put into it and all that. Maybe I heard that with Manjaro, but I never heard that with Arch Linux. But you gotta be with any kind of software you get on the internet, you gotta be very, very cautious. That's why I get a lot of source that says Git from the AUR, and I check the GitHub source as well on the GitHub page. So I'll search the software I want to get, and I'll just go on the GitHub page, and I'll review it myself and see how safe it is. You know what I mean? For the most part, you're not gonna get any bad programs. I never had any problems with malware on Linux ever in my entire life, or even on Windows or any other operating systems. I actually never had any problems with virus or malware. I'm very it really comes down to user maintenance, user knowledge. Okay, use your own judgment. Okay, if you think a software that seems malicious, don't use it. Don't install it. It's common sense, right? So, is Arch Linux unstable? I don't consider it unstable. The only time I really consider Arch Linux was quite unstable, and it was your system would break for a moment, was the transition of them going to a new init system, which was called systemd, when Arch Linux was getting rid of the old System V in it, like a lot of distributions probably had a lot of problems at first. I noticed even with Debian and other systems, there was a little hiccup here and there around that time. But System D now and Arch Linux nowadays, man, it's a stable system. Like I have used Arch Linux on some rocky times, man. And I gotta say right now, like you download Arch Linux right now, it's pretty solid. I gotta tell you guys, like straight up, I've been using Arch Linux for a lot. I used Arch Linux when it was on a rocky road a little bit. Still pretty stable system, but back then, if you don't know what you're doing, believe me, you're gonna have a very unstable system. Think about Arch Linux though. What you really, it's kind of like Gentoo in a way. You really got to maintain your system. You got to update it all the time. It's a rolling release, especially Arch Linux. You got to maintain it a lot. You got to always update it. Like you can't really just not update it for a while and expect things to work really good out of the box. It's good to update it. I always update it every day. Okay, that's the thing about Arch Linux. It's a rolling release. So it gets updates constantly, and it gets updates a lot, and the kernel gets updated quite often. So you're going to be rebooting your system every time you get a new kernel. So that is that, but that's you're well aware of it. If you're a person that's going to get into roll and release systems, you probably already have the knowledge that like kernels get updated pretty quickly on roll and release because that's the whole idea, right? Software gets updated on a roll and release because that's the whole idea. Because it's on a bleeding edge. Everything is any software gets updated, it will get updated right away, and like it's really good. I like it personally because I like using like all the new technology, the new software, the new stuff that's getting updated into all these softwares, new stuff, new features in kernels like in Linux kernel. All the new drivers and all that new stuff that Linux is getting in each new version of their kernel. So that's why I like roll and release. And I do like Packman Package Manager. I think it's a really good system. Works really well. And it's actually my favorite package manager of any other distribution. I always a big fan of Packman. And my older videos, or if you guys ever see my old videos in the past, even from my older channels, I will always say good things about Packman. I'm a big Packman fan. So, yeah, and I always constantly updated my system, and it's really stable. I really had no problems at all. I know people will say like if I don't use a tile window manager system, I'm not really an Arch Linux user. Probably the person was just being sarcastic. I don't know. I never heard this before, but I heard people that just use Arch Linux are real Arch Linux users. It doesn't matter what desktop environment or window manager you use. If you're using this system, you're an Arch Linux user. Period. Because you're using Arch Linux. It doesn't matter what GUI you use because it's still Arch Linux, right? And basically, you're using GNU Linux. Doesn't matter what distribution you're using GNU Linux. That's the crux of the system in general. Distributions just have different package managers and different configurations. But other than that, it's still GNU Linux, right? So if you really want to get technical with things, the crux of the system of all Linux distribution is GNU Linux. Okay? And the reason why I added GNU in the front is because I want users to know that Linux is a kernel, GNU is the user land. Okay? This shell you see here, that's your GNU system. Okay? Works really good. And I gotta say, like my new PC build that I built there, like the video that I showed, like a little 2-minute video I made. I have two Asus computers. They're both running AMD Ryzen 7 5700X. Very good processor. You guys looking for a good processor that is not really that expensive, and you want really good power, and a really good gaming CPU. I gotta say, this is really power efficient. Very low power, and I gotta say, this is a really good CPU. Like, I can't stress enough. Like, this CPU is so good, and for the price I pay for it, $210 retail, man. Like, you can't go wrong with this. This is a really good processor, and I think people, if you're looking for like a new Ryzen AM4 CPU, I would say the 5700X is good. If you're planning to get a 5800X, you're probably just better off getting the 5700X. It's really not much of a difference. The 5800X is a little bit better, but you're going to be paying more for it. And I find that the 5700X is just as good, and it's lower power consumption and power efficiency, which I think is better. For me personally, I think it's better. It works really well with my RTX 3060. And this motherboard is B550 Plus. It's a Asus Prime board. It's not the best board, but it's good. I mean, it's good for like a budget board. It's good. I mean, it's nothing wrong with it. It works fine. It's a good motherboard. It's just I personally I'm more of an ROG Strix person. I should have got an ROG Strix board. I should have got the B550F. I mean, I could always get it in the future. I might do that. But I'm happy with this Mobo. I mean, it's not that bad. And it works really well with Arch Linux. I mean, I had no problems with Arch Linux. And Gnome 45 is very solid, man. And I know people are probably like, oh, you should use a Talon window manager, man. No, I like Gnome. I've been a big Gnome user for a long time. I went through that phase, like a lot of these newer Arch Linux users. That's what I call them, the newer Arch Linux users, because I've been using Arch Linux probably before probably some of the people that are watching the video probably weren't even born yet when I started using Arch Linux. I don't know. My point is that I've been using it for a long time, and I went through that phase. Like, using window managers and Rice in your desktop, configuring all these cool little things and make your desktop so unique that it looks like an alien desktop. Yeah, I done that, been there. Good times, fun times. And I had this bad attitude like some people I see sometimes. I'm just like, yeah, you remind me of me when I first used Arch Linux. I used to be like that. I'd be very, very, very fanboyish, I should say, right? Very, very fanboy. Like, nothing's better than Arch Linux. Arch Linux is the best, and you gotta set up this way, and that's the best way to set it up, and that's the true Arch Linux way. That's the Arch way of doing things, and blah, 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 blah. But nowadays, I just like, I like Arch Linux. I like a very simplistic desktop. GNOME is very simplistic. It's very elegant, too. I like the new, the little workspace switcher. I love that. That's something I really like in GNOME 45. That's really cool. I think it's very basic, and I think GNOME works really well. People's like, oh, well, it takes like 3 gigabytes, and it's very high on memory. Dude, I have 48 gigabytes of memory. I mean, if I can use more, sure, all the merrier. I have enough memory. If I'm not using my memory, then what's the point of me having memory? It's meant to be used. Think about that. like saving memory, using less of your memory, you're just wasting your memory. You're not, it's not doing anything better for your system. Have it like to use more memory. It's actually good because you're actually using your memory. And if you don't want to use a lot of memory, then don't put a lot of memory in your system. Because you're just wasting it. I put a lot of memory in my system because I do a lot of virtualization. Well, I'm not doing it right now, but I will be in the future. I need to install VirtualBox and VMware. I install both because some of them, like some distribution works better in VMware than VirtualBox, and VirtualBox works better with some distributions. So I install both because I like both. I'm not a big fanboy of either of them. They're both good virtualization programs. I just install both of them. I personally am more of a VirtualBox person, but I do occasionally like to use VMware as well. So it really depends what system I'm using. Like especially with FreeBSD, I really like to use that mainly with VMware, but they're both good. I mean, like I said, like it depends what system you want to use it with, and I think VirtualBox is pretty good as well. I don't know. Anyways, I'm gonna install that, and I will be reviewing some other distributions in the future. Right now, I'm just still playing around with Arch Linux. Still, just playing around with it. I've been kind of busy, like with work, and it's like it's Christmas. Like it's coming soon, so like I've been pretty busy with work and been working really hard because it's a lot of work, a lot of like I work in retail, so there's a lot of load that we're getting. And I have to like stock everything, and it's man, it's just crazy. I'm beat, tired, and I'm doing these YouTube videos after work. I don't know how I do it, to be honest, but I do it. And I like computers a lot. I like working with systems, but like right now I'm not really testing out any other distributions because I'm too tired to actually test out things. But I'm just giving you guys like my, since I completely just went strictly just Arch Linux only, and that's the only system I use. I have 3 computers that I have that are running. Besides my Mac computer, it runs Mac OS, of course. But I have 3 AMD computers. I got one on my big screen TV in the living room, which is on a B-Link. It's a full AMD box. It's an APU 5800H, Ryzen 7. It has integrated graphics, which is Vega 8, I think it's called, something like that. And then I have my 2 ASUS computers, and they both use Ryzen 7 5700X CPU. They're both the same chip, and they're both brand new. I bought it both of them a month ago. So they're both the same processor. I got a 4060 RTX on my B550A, and I got a 3060 on my B550 Plus. Both really good computers, both used differently. My B550A is the ROG Strix. I use that for gaming, Linux gaming, of course. So I game only on Linux, and I game only on Arch Linux, by the way. And yeah, I think the games that I play works really well on Steam Linux. And I gotta say, Linux is getting really good with PC gaming, especially on Steam. Good job, Valve. Really, really impressed, and keep up the good work. And Arch Linux team, you guys are doing a good job on your distribution. And I really love Arch Linux. And this is my main system, and it will always be my main system. And I'll always will be using Arch Linux. Is it the best? For me, it is, but it's not the best for everybody else. I mean, if you like it, that's cool. Right on. welcome to the welcome to the community. If you think it's good but it's not for you, that's cool. Use what you like. I always say that. Use what you like. If you like Windows, use Windows. You like Mac OS, use Mac OS. You like Linux, use Linux. You like BSD, use BSD. Really, use what works good for you guys. That's all I gotta say. Arch Linux works good for me in every single way, and I love this system. And I will always brag it up because it's a system I love to use. But I'm not gonna say it's good for everybody because it's not. It's definitely not for everybody. But for me, it is. I love it, and I think anybody that's really interested in a roll and release system, yeah, definitely check out Arch Linux. Very stable system, works really well, works really good with Gnome 45 desktop. Yeah, I gotta say, like, if you have like a laptop, whatever, and you need Bluetooth and all that stuff, you can install Bluetooth and you can set up with system controls really easy. I done it with my B-Link. And yeah, it's not really hard to set up Bluetooth with Gnome on Arch Linux. It's very straightforward. You can even go on the wiki. Arch has a lot of good wikis, like FreeBSD in general. Okay, FreeBSD has a really nice handbook, and Arch Linux kind of takes that philosophy from FreeBSD. Arch Linux has a really good handbook as well. Same as Arch Linux is, I don't know. It's like the FreeBSD of Linux. You know what I mean? Like it's like FreeBSD in the Linux world. Like FreeBSD to the BSD, Arch Linux is like that to the Linux. You get what I'm saying? Like it's very inspired by FreeBSD a lot. I know people are like, oh no, it's not inspired. Yes, it is. You research Arch Linux and its origins are Crux, Linux, probably Slackware, and BSD systems, mainly FreeBSD. So, yeah, great system. It's very stable. I had no issues at all. No problems with Arch Linux since I've been just running all three of my computers. Just no problems. Like if I had problems, I would say I had problems, but I really had no issues at all. Like it is stable. This is like the most stable GNU Linux system I use this year. Of all the systems I tested out, this is the most stable system I use this year. And I gotta say, great job, man. I can't stress enough. Like every program I throw at it works well. Every program I need, it has. Yeah, it works really good. I don't know, it doesn't take really much memory. Like right now I'm using 7.3 gigabytes. People might think that's a lot. It's nothing. I got a bunch of things open. I'm running OBS. I'm doing a screencast. It's not bad. The computer can handle a lot more stuff. I can actually do a VM right now if I wanted to. Like it's really good. It's lightweight. Yeah, running desktop environments will, it will take more memory than a window manager will, but I don't know. Use whatever you find is good for your system. You want to use like a window manager? Use a window manager. Go for it. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. You like to write your system? Have fun with that. That's cool. I don't know, man. I guess I'm getting old. I just like the default shell. Looks good enough. It got the dark mode. That's cool. Right on. The only thing I do with theming nowadays with Ryzen is my GNU system. I like to have my GNU shell. I like to write that. That's it. I choose my own fonts and my own color schemes. That's it. That's the only theming I do nowadays with when it comes to Ryzen on my system. I just write my GNU. That's basically it. GNU shell. And that's it. And I use blur my shell because I think it looks nice. You know what I mean? And yeah. I like GNOME. I think GNOME 45 is a really good desktop environment. Personally, I think it's really good. I use extensions to make it, make it useful for me, because I like to have a system tray. I like to have icons on the desktop, and I like to have my dock visible. And I like to have blur my shell because it looks cool. It just it makes Gnome more elegant because it looks pretty basic without it. But yeah, that's what's cool about Gnome. It's very basic, and you can use extensions to make it the way you want it to make it. And I think that's cool. Anyways, guys, thanks for the watch. Just my little thought right now on Arch Linux, and it's probably gonna be my main system for now on. I'm kind of tired bouncing around on my host with different systems. If I'm gonna try out other systems, I will basically try them out in a virtual machine. Yeah. I probably will be buying another NVMe disk for my B550 Plus. Since I do have another M.2 slot, I will get another NVMe disk. I might, if I do find a distribution that I want to try on the actual hardware, I will have that disk for that to play around with. But for the most part, my main system is Arch Linux. But yeah, but I will be looking at other systems and checking out other distributions as well. Anyways, thanks for the watch, and I hope people that are getting into Arch Linux or thinking about trying it out, give it a shot, man. If you guys have any questions about like Arch Linux, I've been using it for a long time. I don't know everything, but if you have any questions, you could always just drop a comment. I'll do my best to help you guys out. Have a good one. Cheers.